All right, good morning. So we're going to have some fun, guys. What do you say? We're going to have a little fun on our panel.
Of course, entertain everyone.
Yeah. So this has been an amazing conference. We want you guys to get as much out of this talk. We're just going to enjoy. We're just going to chat. We're going to talk about MedTech and the innovation. So let's go. All right, so my name's Lacey Tezino. The work that I do in the world is transforming mother-daughter relationships with a new teletherapy app that I created. So each of our panelists are going to introduce themselves and just talk about what is the important work you do in the world. We'll start here.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Volcek. I'm a medical doctor, and I'm a founder of the Red Drop, which is a business and a charity. We provide opportunity for people to have accessible health screening programs via the remote blood testing and health advice via digital health and telemedicine. And as a charity, we provide opportunities for health screening in populations in low and mid-income countries.
That's amazing.
So yeah, Joern Thiemer, second time in a row here on the panel. I'm a dentist and oral surgeon and one of the founders of the biggest chain of dental clinics in Germany, and looking forward to grow and to give working opportunities for all female dentists who are coming up the next years in Germany.
I appreciate that work. Thank you.
Hi guys, my name is Martin. I'm from a company called Olinqua. I kind of feel like a bit of an imposter because we don't actually do medical devices or automate any of the medical treatments. What we focus on is more in acute care and more around actually some of the issues that were raised about the workforce and nursing. Our job is to try and automate things throughout the hospital to make the staff experience better and more effective, bringing more information to people's fingertips and just making the hospital kind of synchronize a little bit better around them. So that's us.
Excellent. Thank you.
Andre Raffenson, I am a co-founder of Oncotech, and basically what we do, it's an AI-driven software. By using your mobile phone, we take a picture of your iris and give you cancer and diabetes type 2 diagnosis within 45 seconds. All 4 stages of cancer and 4 major cancer types. So that's, and it's got CE marked, and we're launching in Africa right now.
It's incredible. So you guys see the diversity in the work that we do. You can hear by the accents of everyone on this panel. This is a diverse panel. We've come from all over the world. So feel free to ask questions at the end. All right, so innovation is a buzzword. You hear it all the time. We've heard it 1,000 times just this week. And I want to hear from you guys. Define innovation for me. Define MedTech innovation. What does it mean to you? Anyone can hop in here.
Shall I start? So for me, innovation, and I briefly mentioned that in my talk earlier, is the focus of personalized healthcare, but the focus from the perspective of not creating the new tech accessible only for numbers of individuals, but creating MedTech to improve health outcomes for population.
So what we see in our field is that the use of digitalization, on the one hand, for the patient journey, to avoid, just in the beginning, all the paperwork. You can do everything at home, everything is done digitally. The X-rays are available for every follow-up doctor, everything. You have your own digitalized patient, I don't know the English word, Akte, patient. Nobody can help me with German. Okay, so all your records, let's say the patient records in digitalized form. And on the second hand, we use it in our profession for creating all kind of new crowns, implants, denture replacement of implants based on digitalized planning and whatever. So it's an enormous help to get a safer treatment, a quicker treatment, less harmful treatment. So even here we're in the beginning, but we see a very bright, successful future here in our professional part.
Cool. Well, I'll kick in. So for me, innovation, I think it's very personal because I consider myself an innovator, rightly or wrongly. I think it's a very human trait. I think innovation for me is about, I mean, it's in the name. It's doing new things. It's taking something that we do and changing it for the better so that it is better. So it's more effective, more efficient. And you can see, you know, if you're crossing a parking lot every day on your way to work, do it for 5 years, then you realize there's a shortcut. That's innovation, because you're always looking for those shortcuts. You're always thinking. And it's something that I think we still have over AI, in that unless we tell it to and tell it where, AI doesn't do that. It doesn't just sit there constantly looking at how we can better use the world and resources and what we can create. So I think, you know, I've sat on a lot of mentoring committees for startup incubators, done a lot to support small businesses that are smaller than us. We're still pretty small, I think. And so, yeah, I think that, you know, we've never lived in a time with as much innovation because of the capability of computing and other infrastructure and technology. And all of this technology and all of these innovators being able to harness it, it's just an unprecedented time for innovation. And I think we'll talk a bit later about some of the roadblocks and some of the barriers against that. But I think that, you know, people are innovating at a scale that the world's never seen before.
In terms of innovation in health, from company's perspective, I mean, the whole mission is just to cut the process. It's all about the patient, right? So get the patient diagnosed and get them to the treatment as quickly as possible so you prolong life. So it's really simple. And any innovative technology or processes that can be implemented, as we see the demographics are challenged and healthcare systems are under pressure everywhere, I think we have to embrace the technology in order to improve, cut the red tape, get the patient to treatment quickly, and have the outcomes much better, so we don't lose them on the beds.
So it's clear that we're all very comfortable with innovation. We're supporters of innovation, but not everyone is. Some people cringe at the idea like, oh man, these people are gonna go fast and break things and it won't last or there'll be failure. So in that sense, what are the biggest challenges with innovation, either in the hospital or just in the medtech world that you guys are seeing in your work?
Well, I think number one challenge is to have the innovations really work for us on a daily basis. And as a practicing doctor, I work in hospitals where we have still observations charted on a paper. And where kind of it would be obvious for everyone has wearables on there, and then patients come to doctors and say, well, my wearable shows different, you know. But I think that all depends on policies and bureaucracy. And of course, from the perspective of policies, we want them, and they are in place. And I talked about the multiple pyramids of the health management structures, but they have to adapt to modern technologies as well, and rapidly changing technologies. And whereas the health policies have to be in place to ensure quality and safety of medicine. And now everyone is obsessed with ChatGPT, and then they think that they will replace doctors the next day. But on the other hand, it cannot stand in the way between the patient and the health delivery. And now we have to shift that health policies from focusing well, unfortunately, at the moment, the model is not what patient wants, but what the health managers think that the patient wants. And it has to be shifted.
What we see is that on the one hand, we have some goals in digitalization, and on the other hand, it's the reality. And Germany is by far not the most digitalized country in the world, especially in medicine. And as an example, a friend of mine brought a small stick to his doctor and said, okay, here are my data. And he said, what shall I do with this? And said, you put it in your computer. And then, no, you have to print it out and send me a fax. And then I put it in my computer via my nurse and whatever. And said, I mean, this is ridiculous, but this is the reality. And it will take some years, I'm convinced it will take some years until we are there where we want to be. But the second thing is we have some patients who are completely into the digitalization, and we have elder people who are not fit and fill out everything on a mobile phone or whatever, and we have to help them. And this is, let's say, a journey which will take, in my opinion, at least 5 to 10 years until we are there. And at the end, this is okay for us, but you have to be patient to reach your goals and to work every day on it and to make it better. Doesn't matter if it is just the first step in the clinic when you fill out all your data and everything until you have all your, as I said, x-rays, treatment plans, whatever, on your mobile phone. Something in between is the reality right now.
That's really good. As the acting Chief Information Security Officer of my company, I applaud that doctor for not putting that USB into his computer. I think that people putting USB devices into things is how we've had a couple of really big cybersecurity incidents in Australia. So do not do that. It's a useful tip. In our experience, so we're in a world at the moment with our technology where we've got the capability to track staff anywhere around the campus to, in some cases, within 1 meter of accuracy. We've got the ability to track patients. We've got the ability to track moving assets, so nurses cannot spend an hour a day looking for bladder scanners and things like that. So you would think that everyone would jump at that, but they're not. And I think one of the barriers to innovation is if you can't make it all work really seamlessly and provide the value, people will just keep doing what they're doing because it's more efficient. Right? It's like you don't use Google Maps to find your way to work every day if you know the way. Right? You don't go through the motions of using technology when you don't need to. And I find a real barrier, notwithstanding some of the cultural and the inertial and some of the regulatory barriers for innovation. I think there's a real, as a tech industry, we need to step up and deliver better solutions that are more easily adopted by people, more seamless, and get that ease of use. And then we'll see a little bit more adoption. At the moment, I don't know if you guys have had exposure to digital tools. There's a lot of vendors out there trying to sell you them. And you go to use them, and it's just a bit hard. And it's difficult. The data entry is difficult. Keeping it up to date is difficult. And so I think that some of the blame is with innovators pushing stuff out there that isn't quite right. And then it seeks to solve a problem, but it doesn't quite get there. And then people just stop using it, like a diet app, like a calorie counting app where you get sick of putting the data in after a week and you stop using it. We've seen entire hospitals go live with our electronic task management system for porters. And then after a while, the usage just deteriorates because people go back to just asking for things and not putting it in the app. So I think that also is probably a lesser understood, but very much for us, real barrier to innovating.
Yesterday, when we prepared for this, there was one very interesting point from you, Martin, and this is something we're dealing with, and that blocks the process of a lot of efficiency. Like in the Central Hospital in Copenhagen, it's an 800-bed hospital, but there are 12 unions, 12. So every time you implement a technology that threatens efficiency, or well, it implements efficiency but threatens workforce, where they have to reduce, the unions step in and make a political issue out of it. Now, you've got 12 unions in one hospital. There's a lot of political work internally too. There's a lot of resistance also. So we meet this in all major hospitals, especially in Northern Europe and probably in Germany too, that you can come with the best solutions, but you will have political issues to deal with internally.
Australia too.
Yeah. So we're going to stick on one type of innovation first for a moment. Let's see what you guys think about it. So wearables and patient monitoring, you know, that's a hot topic in medtech. And I want to hear where are you guys working on MedTech? Where do you see it, wearables right now, and where are we going with wearables? Ed, do you want to start us?
So I see, so wearables is a very important aspect and feature for our business because it helps us track certain data from the patients and help them with that information. However, I probably follow what Martin mentioned about some technologies not being ready or not being there yet. But I think I presented that utopic idea about collecting data from wearables around the world for populational health screening and kind of real-time data monitoring. That will come, but it has to come in the most efficient manner. As someone mentioned yesterday in their talk, that certain data can become not an asset, but really a liability and a burden.
That's a really good point. Good. Anyone else want to add?
Yeah, what we see in our field of medicine is, I mentioned before, we are in a kind of luxury segment, but on the other hand, it's not only the head, it's a complete body. And we have a cooperation with the largest American group of dental clinics who have around 950 dental clinics in the Western Coast, and they work on the mouth-body connection. And that means they have to collect data from the hospitals and bring it together. And sometimes we are, as dentists, the first ones who see some critical diseases, because when you see bleeding in the mouth or find out some special bacteria on it, you have the idea that there could be a heart attack in the future or whatever. So it's all one body, and it's not only, you have to have a nice smile or whatever decay with some small things. You don't die on this, but you maybe die on some not detected things here, and we are sometimes the first ones who see this. And then you have to put together all the data, and this is totally important for the for the doctor in his office or for the hospital to get the data from the dentist office, and vice versa. So the complete data collection is, in my point of view, one of the most important things.
And one of the things that I remember, I used to be director of IT at a psychiatric hospital. And all of the departments would come to my team and say, we need more data, we need more information, and we would run reports, we'd pull the data, but they didn't do a lot with it. And I thought, okay, to your point, some of it's burdensome. Some people don't know how to analyze the data. They don't know what they want to do with the data. They know, okay, if I have it, I can make new things, we can innovate. It's not always the case, but in your case, it's very important to have it. To make decisions. I think we just need to know, have it at the right time for the right thing. So good points, guys. You want to elaborate, either of you?
So I actually worked for about 2 years as the head of data analytics at our state health department. So I can relate to this topic. Unless we have an hour, I'm not going to say a lot. I will say we had, privacy is the thing that comes up all the time with data. And the number of times that we tried to get a program up and running where people said, we want the data, we need the data, and then all of a sudden it was, yes, but what about? Then there's a list of things, and that usually starts with privacy and security and compliance. I think we're at a turning point. I think there's a generation coming who don't value privacy as much as the previous, so I'll say about that. And I think that we're seeing that already in some of the programs that are getting up and running. Some of the open data exchange programs and initiatives like the one that you're proposing. I think we're just about to see a lot of that accelerate, because we're at a turning point of our just acceptance of, just because you get some data in aggregate doesn't mean that you can see me sleeping at night, right? It's different. And I think as awareness grows, we'll see more and more of that accepted. But certainly I think that a lot of people, they love the idea of data, but then you give it to them, and I agree with you, they're just like, whoa, what do we do now? We didn't think we'd get this.
That's a beautiful point. I haven't thought about that with Gen Z, really feeling like, I don't care, have my name, have my social, whatever, and how that's going to allow us to innovate faster, or maybe, not have the barriers of the privacy and security that we had with generations before, and them being more comfortable with us using their information in a faster and, more comprehensive way. Andre?
So we're certainly seeing that in the field with staff tracking. Staff tracking has gone from you will not track staff, full stop, end of sentence, end of paragraph, close the book, right? And now we've got staff safety devices that people can pull if they can't reach a panic button. People come running, they know where they are. And so over the last 5 years, that's turned upside down in Australia. Now we have one state that mandates personal duress safety pendants. And so I think, yeah, it's just accelerating.
Another good point, because I remember, staff feeling like it's this big, with this technology, big brother, you're going to be micromanaging my work and things that I'm doing. But, if we can actually create more efficiency, show them if it's safer, and we can get things done. And it's not about monitoring whether you're doing your job, and it's not about your personal performance. Yeah. Anything to add, sir?
Well, it depends who's in charge, right? It's a trust issue. So there's a reason why Snowden, he lives in Moscow right now, right? And he basically exposed how the data was misused by the government by monitoring people. So as long as data is in the right hands, it's fine. But if it's in the wrong hands, then it's not fine. And I think most, at least from Scandinavian perspective, that most young people, they do not care. They're almost ready to live in a glass house, right? But so they don't care. But what they care about is, and there has been various Gallup polls on this, that the data is monetized. See, if you hold the data, the blockchain solution is great for this, right? Because one, it's uncorruptible. But if the data is sold through the back door, and my personal view on this is, it's fine, but I want a piece of the pie. So if Facebook want to use my data, where's my cut, right? And nobody gets the cut from this. So as long as it's not commercialized and used and abused for retail purposes, I think people are fine. They just don't trust the power structure that sells backdoors data. And the blockchain solution is actually a good solution for this.
So we have a few more questions we'll go through here, and then we'll leave the last 10 minutes for questions. We'd love to engage with you. If you have things that you've been thinking of now that you know everyone's background, make sure that you save your questions. So a few more for the panel. Are there any products or people that you're specifically watching in the medtech innovation realm that you've had your eye on, that you're interested in? Want to hear from you guys. Any specific products or people that you're watching in the innovation world right now?
Well, I think Google has been lagging a little bit in this, but they sure got off the races last 2 weeks. They're on a big stage, just launching products like almost on a daily basis. The latest one is a retina scanning like we do, and deficiencies in eyes in terms of diabetes patients, and they're going full speed, integrating it with the ChatGPT kind of a structure. So I think we'll see just mind-boggling things coming next 6 months. FDA finally and are coming up with the fast-track programs for these products. So I think we'll see huge changes next just 6 to 12 months.
We are watching some startups in Germany who are working on tools who are helping us with this patient journey. For example, we have one company, it's called Better Care, and they do all the things that make it easier for patients to go to the doctor, to get some knowledge about their specific treatments. For example, one day before they get the treatment, they can look a video from their doctor who explains everything and says, okay, I know you're nervous, I would be nervous too, and this is what happens and whatever. And on the day after, they get a message when they say, okay, when something hurts or something is like this is completely normal, and are worried about it, and so on. And then they get 1 week after the treatment an email where they say, okay, you're satisfied, yes or no. When you put yes, then you are on a online platform where you can say, oh, my doctor is the best or whatever. And if you say, no, I'm not, you are not on the way to this platform, but you can email to your doctor directly and say what is wrong or make a new appointment, whatever. So everything is covered from the beginning to the end. There is a confirmation for the appointment included, for example. Everybody from us knows it is completely, let's say, not so good if somebody not shows up for an appointment. There's no show, as in the gastronomy, for example, the same. But we can't charge this regularly in Germany and say, okay, if you don't show up, it costs you 500 or whatever. It's not legal, or they're not, let's say, not so easy. But they have to confirm it 1 day before. They get a reminder and whatever. And our no-show rate, for example, is less than 5%. And it came from, let's say, 15% or 20% sometimes, depending on the region. And so we are working together with the startups to help them. We say them what we need, and they develop it. And this is, everything's on the way, but it's a good way.
I love that. I think a lot of organizations focus on what is the patient journey while you're at their facility. So when you walk in from when the time you leave, but I think focusing on either the post-discharge or post-appointment journey as well. So instead of the patient having to call the next day and say, oh, what is this pain? I love that you're being proactive and actually marching out that journey when they leave. And, you know, those that are thinking about the journey before they get to your facility, I think that's some good innovation as well. What are you watching?
So myself, of course, I've been watching the industry of blood testing and of digital health, and I saw, of course, now the industry of medtech is growing so rapidly, and there are so many very interesting examples, and only from being here I discovered so many amazing innovations. And someone was talking yesterday about really great opportunities of microsampling. So this is something what I now coinciding probably with, not to mention probably here, Elizabeth. I think her, she did everything wrong with the way she approached, but the ideology and potential of microsampling is there, and I think we'll get there, of course, with all of the appropriate technologies.
And as you were talking, before you said Elizabeth, I was thinking about her, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think that put a little bit of fear in innovators, right? So if I have an idea and I push it out there, although, you know, there were some things that she could have done differently, but I think it's what happens if it does fail? What happens if it is found out that I'm not doing it right, or so?
Well, I think it all depends on how honest and authentic you are with what you're doing, but I think obviously experiences like that, and we were talking about the health data and management and you know, having opportunity to have full control of your own health data, and I think the same honesty and authenticity has to be present in all of the medtech, and you know, I think there is a huge potential when everything is done right.
So there is something I'm watching and it excites me, but I'm actually going to tack on to the point that you made about the patient reminders. So we had a really interesting experience, and I'm going to share it because I think it's a bit eye-opening. So because we get a lot of data from other systems in the hospital, someone had this idea of, hey, you've got all the appointments, why don't you send automatic reminders? It's the automation right there. And we also have big problems with people not showing, and You know, it's a real problem. So, you know, we wired it in and we started sending appointment reminders, and they set some rules. So if you're an adult, so if you're over 18, you get the appointment reminder. If you're underage, then your carer gets the appointment reminder. And they had all the contact details, and et cetera. And then one day, the parent of a girl going in for a pregnancy ultrasound at 16 got the reminder, right? And there's a real unintended consequence of some automation, because you're taking away that inherent human judgment where someone would have thought about that. Computers don't think about it unless you tell them to. And that's the kind of dark side, but it's not that dark, because it's just, I think that people say it's complex. Healthcare is complex because you're dealing with people. They're 100% right. And if you're going to innovate in healthcare, you've got to give that complexity a big hug and then just work through it, get it done. And we did. In the end, the business rules for that system ended up filling an A3 page with a process diagram that said, if this, then that, but don't do this. And if it's this clinic, don't do that. And they've been working fine for something like 5 years with no further incident. So you can work through the complexity, but this is another kind of cautionary tale of if you go too far too fast, you can have some pretty unexpected, unintended consequences.
But this is a kind of experience, huh? You learn it by doing. And it's not only the reminding, it's, they have to confirm it. But if you remind them by email or whatever, you have no idea if they read it. So they have to reconfirm. Otherwise, we cancel the appointment or try to reach them by phone or whatever. So it's a complex thing, but at the end, we want to work the whole day and have no free space in it. And of course, this pregnancy test, whatever, is very specific. I can't imagine anything in dentistry what could be a similar problem.
And my dentist sends me appointment reminders every time.
Yeah, not you every day. Okay, maybe sometimes you have to confirm it.
Yeah, so I don't confirm, and then I come, and then they're like, "What are you doing here?"
Yeah, right.
But if I could answer the question about the product, just going back on that. So, you know, they say the difference between magic and technology is once something's technology is high enough, then we don't tell the difference between it and magic. Some of the technologies that you guys have just alluded to, you know, iris scanning, pupil scanning, there's video technologies that from a video feed can actually tell people's heart rate, respiration rates, literally OBS, hands off. To me, that's magic. That's extraordinary. And it's a huge amount of global innovation that's getting pumped into those things. I think that, you know, one of my colleagues who I used to work with now is the chief operating officer at a startup, big startup, where they're doing awareness tracking in cars. So for truck drivers, you know, the thing that wakes them up if they're drowsy, they've figured out that there's things that they can tell from eyes while driving that would actually give you early insight into things like early onset Alzheimer's. And so they're actually applying for FDA approval for this device. So we're this close to your car being a medical device. That's exciting for me. I don't know where it's going to go, but yeah, to me, it's magic and it's great.
Yeah, that sounds very exciting. Andre, what are you watching? Anything?
We're specifically targeting general practitioners and decentralized healthcare. So like in Norway, for example, very little population, pretty big country. So you have a lot of general practitioners sitting on islands and remote. And in general, general practitioners are not comfortable in setting the final diagnosis. If they see a patient that is something wrong with them, they do just basic analysis. They opt not to take the risk. They send the patient to the central hospitals, which is a huge journey. It's very costly. So we want to provide, in terms of telemedicine, right? So telemedicine kind of had its in way, but not, it hasn't really had a great impact, just a small impact. We want to have the general practitioner be able to like scan the eyes, do a remote diagnosis, use the data to make the final decision. Do we send the patient to the central hospital? Or even professors at the central hospital will look at the data and say, no need, you can treat them locally, it's a no-brainer. Because right now there's just too many patients, I think it's about almost half of the patients Central Hospital in Oslo are sent for treatments that could have been done locally. And it's just a matter of setting the right diagnosis and give the general practitioner comfort that he's not taking or she's not taking a huge risk by not doing it. It's all data, comfort, assurance, and validation. So the professors that sit in Central Hospital, they don't need to see the patient. They just have a remote conversation very quickly and make a decision, get it treated. It's all about the patient and
you
cost
guys are-
and reducing of cost.
Yeah, for sure. You guys are watching some pretty cool stuff that's going to make healthcare more efficient, going to automate some things. It's interesting to hear it. So before we open up for questions, we have 1 minute left, and then we'll spend 10 minutes talking with you guys. So what we're going to do is a quick lightning round. And how I like to do this is I just throw out a topic, and you first thing that comes to your mind around innovation, okay? So I'll start with you, Ed. Immersive technology. What comes to mind?
Immersive technology, so that's VR and then all of the virtual reality. I think two things come in mind for me as a medic. One thing is medical education and the use of VR in medical education. And another thing is mental health. And actually, somewhere at this time, there is a show happening in London about kind of health optimization, and it would be very interesting to be there as well to see what they're suggesting. But I saw that there are some innovations using VRs for mental health.
Great. Andre, 3D printing. What comes to mind with 3D printing?
Devices, manufacturing of devices, especially in terms of like syringes, PVC, etc. Decentralize that. Don't have to wait for shipments across the globe. I think that's if that can be done locally, just on a blueprint, that would be great.
Yeah, very cool. Martin, what about hospital automation?
Gee, a topic I know nothing about. I think it's coming, and it's coming fast. We've seen automation start really slowly 10 years ago because the infrastructure just wasn't there to support it. So think about trying to use Google Maps where it doesn't have any traffic information because there are no other phones around. And all of a sudden now there are so many phones that the stuff's becoming really useful. And I think that's just happening right now. And whether it's a business process automation, which to your point about that dentist and the closing the loop, and then freeing up an appointment that otherwise would have been a 45 minutes or an hour of wasted clinical time. That's huge. So whether it's business process automation around the patient journey, or whether it's the kind of automation that we focus on, which is very real time for every staff member, clinical and clinical support, the infrastructure available today is just light years ahead of the infrastructure available 10 years ago. And that is what I think is exciting and why it's accelerating.
Absolutely. Last one, robotics.
Yeah, robotics is, we tried robotics years ago with an implant surgery. And it was not a big success to let it be done by robots. With the placing, we had injured nerves and whatever, and it's gone in our field of dentistry. But I take this 3D printing question from you. There is absolutely success in dentistry. We now can replace lost bone, jawbone, by 3D printed bone, like a puzzle. And when we make a 3D picture, and then the missing piece is printed, and it fits exactly in the missing part of the jaw. And let's say it takes about 4 to 6 months, and then we can use it. Then it's completely grown in, and we can place implants in it or whatever. And it is a success rate right now from over 80%, but it's growing.
Fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
But it has to be done by a surgeon and not by a robot.
Yep.
Yeah, that's for sure. Right now. Yeah.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much. So we have about 6 minutes for any questions for the panel. And we won't get down until we get some. No, come on.
So thank you for the conversation. It was very interesting. So I work for a group, and in that group we have lawyers, we have clinicians, and we also have techs. And the group was formed because of the state of the healthcare system in the UK. The group was formed by clinicians, for clinicians, in the hope that the efforts that they make in innovation would then support the public health. And the clinicians came together because they were whistleblowing, effectively. The system was so broken that there was inequalities amongst staff, and also that then spilled over to patient services. So as I work in the legal counsel of this group, and as I work and I move through the different audiences across tech, across legal, and across clinicians, I can't help but think that the tech is futuristic, and our systems, whether they're the law system or whether it's the healthcare, we don't have the basics right. So shouldn't we be focusing on getting the basic system and upgrading that from a 17th century system to where we are now before we put so much emphasis on tech? What does the panel think about that?
That's a great question for this panel.
Well, AI will replace the lawyers. Here's another bunch of gangsters. So I think, yes, like unions I talked about. You can have all the systems in the world, but you have unions blocking it because their interest is to represent the people that they represent. So as long as, this is a very difficult, because again, special interests. Well, the lawyers just get the AI in and get the lawyers out of the way. But I think it's coming. I think it's coming very fast, and the systems will be challenged. And it's what happened before, what would take us 4 or 5 years, especially before COVID, to make small changes. I mean, technologically wise, we see these weekly. What usually would take a year is just happening weekly now. So I think the whole system will be challenged because it's broken. Basically, it's broken.
So should we go back and fix the system and then apply the tech? Wouldn't that be the more appropriate way to manage a nation through change? Because looking at it from a legal perspective, I don't know, as I said, I work with these techs who are sort of like, you know, futuristic. And
Well,
then I work with these...
it's the systems that block the tech to come in.
Yeah.
So the tech has to challenge the system.
Okay.
So.
Okay, thank you.
It's like, any clinicians here would probably know the value of a cross-functional team. So cross-functional team, by definition, is just people from different functions aligning to solve a problem. I think what you're doing is the way to do it. It's not about doing one thing before another. It's about those three parties together working through in parallel, because solving the system without knowing the technology that you're trying to solve it for, it's kind of like preparing your vehicle for a journey that you actually don't know if it's going to be through the Alps or through the desert, right? You need to be working together with the tech, legal, and clinical, and then also operational, because especially in acute care, there's a big operational, and it's unions and everyone else, that everyone has to be involved to move it forward. Otherwise, I suspect it might move forward, but in the wrong way, and that's counterproductive.
Sorry, I've got another question. So my next question is, knowing obviously what we know regarding the systems being 17th century, or sort of like, you know, built in the 70s and now we're in the 21st century, and then you have tech, which is futuristic, do you think that tech is fueling inequalities? Because your tech is applied on a regional basis, not a national basis, and to me that's inequalities. So are you the problem, not the solution? Not you personally, obviously. Sorry.
So for our tech, I can speak just for our tech because I don't have visibility broader, it's the opposite. So we're actually rolling out a lot more tech in regional, as in rural and remote hospitals. We're seeing a lot more virtual care, telehealth and other advancements. People in a big city are always going to have access to that hospital. It's always going to be pretty good. It was good 10 years ago, it was good 20 years ago. And what we're getting is pretty marginal improvements, good ones, but marginal. What we're seeing in the rural communities is that they're going from somewhere way back to actually catching up. So I actually think it's the opposite.
Okay. And again, this is about tech being the problem, not the solution, because obviously you're applying it to regions, and then you have inequalities because some regions don't have that tech and others do, and then there's disparity, isn't there?
You'd like to think that at some point everyone will have it, but yes, at the moment, yeah. And I think it's interesting because, again, I can only speak from my perspective in Australia, but our tech's being rolled out in some of the most underprivileged regions first, which is interesting because it goes right to that point.
Thank you.
And I think there are a few barriers to rolling it out. I agree with you that it does cause some inequality, but I can speak for, like, for example, the app that I created. It's not easy for me to roll this app out in different regions, different countries because of licensure. So I can't have a therapist in the U.S. who can treat a mom in Egypt and, you know, also speak Arabic, and also, so there's the language barrier, there's the licensure barrier. So I don't think it's as easy to go fast. I would love to roll it out across regions and everyone can benefit from different tech. I think we just have to get over the language, the licensure, making sure that we're doing it in the right way to expand access, and it's possible. I know our time is up. She's walking up here and he's walking to the mic. Hurry before she gets up here. Hurry, hurry, hurry. Ah.
Thank you so much, panel. David Golding. A quick question about entrepreneurship. What I see before me are 5 successful entrepreneurs. And I can tell you that the data from the UK, I know this data, I calculated it, is that for every 200 companies that are started, only 1 survives after 2 years. So it's not that you represent 1,000 empty seats, and it's not that you're the tip of the iceberg here. You're probably the snowball on the iceberg. Can I ask you, as an entrepreneur trying to do something that's innovative here, what single piece of advice would you give me to help me be one of those seats? Thank you.
Well, I think the problem is I'm one of them. I'm an angel investor. And the problem is if you move too fast, you're underfunded, you die in the process. So the key, it's the fuel in the car, right? So you need to have like we have a Swiss family office, Swedish Swiss, and they have committed to the process. As long as you live up to the process, it's management by objectives, they will release the money. But if you get a chunk of money and they turn, like a VCs, right? They give you a chunk of money, they turn their heads around, and then you have to do monthly reports just to keep them updated, they're not involved, and then you run out of money, and then you have the pointing finger session, and then the whole thing dies. So it's about not moving too fast, have it validated, confirmed, certified, and have enough funding. And of course, strong management, people that know what they're doing. So most people die because of liquidity.
Great, thank you for the extra time. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Our panel on MedTech.